Welcome back, everyone, to the Late Night Review. And tonight I want to talk about Game of Death with Bruce Lee. This has always been one of my favorite movies. And yes, Bruce Lee's not in most of it, but it's still one of my favorites. You know, I've never really decided what Bruce Lee movie I like the best for sure. I go back and forth sometimes between Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, the Big Boss. I really don't know. Game of Death, I've always loved it. I've always liked this movie, especially the end where Bruce Lee, the real Bruce Lee, is actually there for the fights in the pagoda, which pretty much is the climax of the movie. So it's great that he's in the fights. It's like destiny, like it was almost meant to be before his passing, that he did the fights in the pagoda on his way up like that. It was very interesting. On his way up the pagoda, he would fight different martial artists from different styles. And this movie, if I rank the Bruce Lee movies and thinking over the years, starting with when I was a kid through the years, not so much now, but through the years, this one was always a movie that I liked a lot, but it was always towards the bottom of my Bruce Lee movies. Even though I loved it, it was always, it wasn't as good to me as the other movies because Bruce Lee was in the other movies from beginning to end. And that was important to me. He was in the other movies from beginning to end. But this movie, I've liked it more and more over the years, and it grew even more on me. I got a ton of nostalgia for it. I was raised watching the VHS of this, watching reruns and watching the VHS of this. And I have to say, I think it could have been his very best movie if he had lived and if he would have finished it. And it's tragic that he passed when he did, because who knows what that guy would have done. He's always been one of my favorites. Always loved Bruce Lee. I was raised on Bruce Lee movies and other, Chuck Norris movies, Bronson movies, Eastwood, all Arnold, Stallone, all those guys, Willis. But as far back as I can remember, some of the earliest films were Kung Fu films and Bruce Lee films, Chuck Norris films. So those were some of the very earliest, along with, of course, Terminator and some of the Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, but and Conan. But this is right in there with them, the Bruce Lee movies I'm talking about, and along with Game of Death. If Bruce Lee was in it from beginning to end, it might have been his best because of the story was interesting. The story, he plays the character of a person who is killed and then he comes back for revenge, but he's killed making a movie. And it's ironic what happens in the Game of Death and then what happened to Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, later when he made The Crow. That's strange and that's interesting. And I've always liked Brandon Lee. Who knows what he would have done if he would have lived. The Crow, that was one of my favorite movies. Rapid Fire, I like Rapid Fire a lot. That's where he reminded me mostly of his dad in Rapid Fire. And yes, I mean, I got a lot of nostalgia for Bruce Lee. And me, I was born in Seattle. So, I mean, not in the city of Seattle, but I was born in Renton, which is right next to Seattle. So a lot of nostalgia for him. I used to walk around Lake Washington all the time. Bruce Lee did when he lived here. And when he first met Linda Lee, he went to dinner in the Space Needle, I believe. But in the movie, another great movie I like is Dragon, the Bruce Lee story with Jason Scott Lee. I thought he did a good job. I thought that was a good movie. In the movie, they had their first dinner in California. But in real life, I believe, if I remember right, it was in the Space Needle in Seattle. And that's where I grew up in that area. But in Renton, it was next to Seattle. But yeah, I got a lot of nostalgia for Bruce Lee in general and his movies. This could have been his best because of the story. And the cast was good. Dan Inosanto is in here. Plays the Stick Master. Kali, Eskrima, different, he just great martial artist. carried on Bruce Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do. And yeah, this movie, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Really, really had always had fun watching it. Sad that he's not in the whole thing. And I think the end of this movie, when he's in the pagoda, are some of the funnest and most entertaining and best martial arts scenes of all time ever filmed. So it would have been awesome to see him in this movie from beginning to end. And it could have been his best just because of the story, that iconic costume. You know, Kill Bill, Quentin Tarantino, they used that costume in the Kill Bill, the yellow costume with the black stripes and everything. It's iconic. And I like the story. They thought they killed him. His death was pretty much faked, and he goes out for revenge. Bob Wall is in here again. Him and Bruce Lee were friends. They worked out together. They trained together all the time, and I always enjoy. I've always enjoyed him. He's in here. He passed away a few years ago. His interviews are, I always have fun watching his interviews on YouTube. He was a great martial artist. Him and Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, they all trained together. And then, of course, Bruce Lee trained Steve McQueen, James Colburn, and multiple other stars. And this movie has a lot to offer. Yes, I know that some of the editing is bad. Certain scenes are spliced together in a bad way. There's certain things in here where they use Bruce Lee's face for certain scenes. It looks totally fake, and it's not very good. But in totality, I always liked this movie, even though I always kind of ranked it towards the bottom of Bruce Lee movies because he wasn't in it from beginning to end. If he would have, it could have been the best. I think it had the potential to be the best. And it's still one of my favorites. I enjoy it. The score is very unique. It's got that kind of genre score because this was made, Bruce Lee's movies were made back in the day where James Bond was getting to be more popular, and it was just getting, pretty much just getting started. And it has that kind of vibe to it, the music, the story, the title, Game of Death, and then of course the martial arts in the pagoda with Bruce Lee. Everything in here seems to be pretty good. It could have been the best if Bruce Lee was in it. Most people have seen this movie. If you haven't, check it out. I mean, even if you don't like martial arts movies, it's interesting to see Bruce Lee perform and do these martial arts in this movie, and in Enter the Dragon. Those two movies he made before he passed. And I like this movie quite a bit, especially the scenes with Bruce Lee. But even when he's not in it, if you like Kung Fu movies, there's plenty of Kung Fu movies, older karate Kung Fu movies available for free on YouTube. If you like those older movies, you'll like this a lot. You'll like this a lot with an added bonus. The score is really good, and the number one bonus is that Bruce Lee is in it. Bruce Lee with Akeem Abdul-Jabbar is in here. That's another one of his students, one of his famous students. And he does really good in here. He's tall. He plays the tall guy. He is a tall guy. They have that fight in the pagoda at the end. He's got that reach, but he's light sensitive. He has his sunglasses on. Even in the pagoda, he's light sensitive. And every character in here is unique. Sammo Hung and Bob Wall are in here. They have a fight before Bob Wall is taken out by Lee's character in the movie. His character, it wasn't Bruce Lee who fought Bob Wall in that scene, but it was an interesting scene, entertaining scene within the locker room where Bob Wall fights his character. And all in all, I think it's a very fun movie, interesting movie. It's disturbing and sad because Bruce Lee passed away close to the time that this movie was made and came out. So that's sad. Certain parts are disturbing. You know, the funeral scene, they actually used footage from the real funeral to put in the film. But it's one of my favorite films, especially the final scenes where the real Bruce Lee is there performing in the pagoda. And I liked it. I really liked this film. if you maybe one day I'll do a Bruce Lee ranking of the films. I still don't know where I'm going to put this with the music and the score and those great scenes at the end with the pagoda. It might have risen. I don't even know what I would choose if I did a ranking. So if I ever do, make sure to tune in and see that. But I like this movie. This has been the Late Night Review. Please like and subscribe and share this video so other people can watch this too. And take care, everybody, and enjoy this movie and watch it and have a good night.